think we're there.
Hello everybody. Hi there. It's the Thursday again. It comes around quickly, doesn't it? It's the infant feeding team at the John Radcliffe Hospital. And this is our session questions and answers about infant feeding. So this session is for anyone that's wanting to know anything about infant feeding. If you have questions about anything else, so pregnancy, scans, visiting, or anything else, bloods or anything like that, please don't ask us because we won't give you the answer. You need to go to either.
Well, we might try.
We might try, but we might not give you the right answer. We are midwives, but we don't always have the right information for each department. So if you're not sure about things, look at the Trust website because that has got the latest information on things like visiting and scans and partners and things like that. But if you need more information, then you can contact your own midwives or GPs or health visitors, and also you can watch Ask the Midwife sessions which I think are alternate weeks, and that's on the OMVP website as well. So same forum, but please don't ask us about anything other than infant feeding, and this is any type of infant feeding. So if your baby's just born, hasn't been born, is weaning, we are happy to answer anything that is concerning you.
And more than feeding, really. I mean, anything early days, really, anything that's happening in those early days, the milestones, etc. You know, any concerns you might have about those, and those are the sort of things we can answer about because that's the area we work in. So, anyway. So we're hoping for a few more questions this week because last week was quite quiet. So
we did a lot of talking.
Yeah, very useful. There was good feedback from it afterwards. A lot of people said how good it was. Well done, Naomi. But it would be lovely to get your questions too because that's what's the hot topic. Whatever's a burning topic for you is what's really important for all of you. And no question is too silly. If you're thinking it, there is bound to be someone else who's thinking it too.
We'll be incredibly grateful that you've asked it.
So just ask, and it's great because it guides what we talk about, rather than us doing all the talking. It's nice to have your questions and be specific to you.
And we are, we're a forum for the whole of the breastfeeding world. For Oxfordshire breastfeeding. So we sort of speak from all of the different groups that are available. The advice that you get from us will be the same advice as you get from all the local supports and, health visitor, midwife, and the OBS, Oxfordshire Breastfeeding Support, and La Leche League as well, plus the NCT guidelines. But obviously you've got access to us live, so that's really important. But this is the voice for everybody, and hopefully you can find support. It's really hard at the moment because you're not getting much face to face. And that makes breastfeeding very hard. It's not a really non-practical subject and thing to do. So you do need lots of help. So we talk every week about something that's usually trending, as in what are we seeing on the street? So what are we getting? The
street of level 5.
The street of level 5, yeah. What's coming back? What are we seeing? What's concerning us that we're perhaps not getting across in the right way to everybody because they're sort of repeatedly happening. And one of the things we've had a lot of this week is postnatal readmissions for weight loss. So I just want to go over it very briefly. I did do a lot of talking about it last week, but some of you might have missed it, and it's a good opportunity to catch up again. And I think the most important thing, I can see some questions coming through, so I won't rattle on quite so much.
You're all right, I've got to say too.
That's good. But I think that you have to remember that the stomach sizes are small, but they get bigger as they grow, and so that means they need more food as they grow. And sometimes we've had mums go away, had a plan put in place, and they've stayed with the volumes that they were told to give and not increasing them. And I know we've both said this lots on these sessions, is that you are the responsible, your baby is your responsibility, and you make the decisions for your baby. And one of those is that you have to look at what's happening and increase the volumes as needed. And those volumes go up, daily as your baby starts to grow, and until it gets to probably a couple of weeks, and then it tends to settle into a regular volume, and they're happy with that amount. But with breastfeeding, the composition of the milk changes, not the volumes often. So by about 6 weeks, you know that your baby's getting the right amount, but the type of milk that they get changes as they breastfeed, and they get the composition changing. But when you're bottle feeding, you tend to increase the volumes. So the baby's tummy stretches. So remember, in the early days, yes, very much so, You can be the props, can't you?
It's always my job to do props.
Baby's tummy sizes are tiny, and you do give tiny amounts, and we constantly say you don't need to give your baby anything extra, so it's almost like a contradiction when we say these things, but actually once your baby, you know, has started to grow a little bit and wake up a little bit more, and the milk starts to be produced in your breast rather than colostrum, you get your transitional milk on day sort of 2 to 3 to 4, and then your mature milk comes by day 5, and that's how it stays. The volumes go up, so your baby's tummy is tiny, isn't it? Like a cherry. So you've got
very
two pictures,
small
tiny
marble.
little cherry. And it only needs tiny little bits, and it doesn't need filling. So that's day 0, day 1. And the volumes will start to go up as you hand express if your baby's not attaching. We don't know how much your baby gets if you're breastfeeding successfully. We just assume it's okay, providing everything else is okay. But if you're hand expressing, your baby gets small amounts, and then that goes up. So by about a week, tummy's about.
Well, that's actually only about 3 days, isn't it? So that one's about the week. So.
Yeah, day 3 it's about a walnut size, isn't it?
So that's how much they're growing. You're going from tiny weeny cherry to about a walnut to an apricot. So it really does grow over the few days. So if you're expressing tiny weeny amounts of colostrum in those first 3 days, that has got to increase each day a bit more and a bit more. And that's how the milk supply works too, that it increases on a daily basis as long as you ask for it. The milk supply is driven by milk removal, so as long as you keep asking for more milk, you'll get more milk, and that's how you secure and establish your milk supply. And that's what babies are looking for. And as Naomi mentioned, it's looking at what's happening with the baby. So your milestones, so your things are, what's happening with the poos. And we are fixated. Anybody who's met me knows I'm totally fixated about poo.
What's in the nappy?
Well, anyone who's come in, and they'll know I'm sitting there, I'm going to be saying, keep hold of the nappies. I want to see what's in a nappy.
Take a picture.
These are so important. What's happening in the nappy tells you what your baby's getting. So we talk about our 4 reliable signs, and that first one is what's the baby doing at the breast? Can you hear swallowing? Is it going to big deep sucks? And then what's happening with the nappy? Are we getting that meconium that's thick and sticky coming through in the first couple of days? Is it then changing to, there's a more greeny poo that's easier to get off the bottom, isn't such a challenge, and then you're going to go on to yellow stools by day 4. And I know we said this over and over again on here, but that's the key message to take home. If you haven't had your babies yet, or you're in the early days, you're looking for yellow stools on day 4, and if you're not getting them, up the feeding. Offer more feeds, start expressing, call the midwife, because that means you may be at risk of being one of our postnatal readmissions. And as Naomi has said, we've had a real ramp up on postnatal readmissions recently. We've had quite a lot more, and sadly, that's a lot to do with maybe not picking up those nappies haven't changed yet. And
maybe they're not pooing even.
Yes, exactly. I was just about to say exactly that. Breastfed babies do not get constipated. If a baby is not pooing, they're not getting enough food. What goes in has to come out. So if your baby's not pooing and you're fully breastfeeding, your baby will need more food in the early days. So I was thinking about that. There have been quite a few questions come through. Do we want to do some of the questions?
So I just think, take home from this is make sure that if you're struggling with breastfeeding, that you increase volumes and that you look at the output. So if the baby's peeing and pooing and everything's fine, then you're probably not going to have a problem. But if you're worried about volumes, if you're worried about your milk supply, your breasts feel quite soft on day 4, it might be that you're a little bit behind, and that might be because you've had a cesarean, it might be because of the reason why people come back in, that they've had more of a tricky start. So I think you have to work twice as hard. You've had a really hard time getting your delivery, and then you have to work twice as hard to secure your milk and make sure your baby feeds. And they're often sleepy as well, so that makes it harder to feed them too. So it's never easy. But I think that if you're ahead of it and you make the decisions, you don't wait for somebody to say, and if you have a plan put in place on day 2 at home in hospital and you go home, by day 4 it should be a different plan. You should think, that was then and this is now, it should be more milk, and you need to put the volumes up so that your baby gets well hydrated and gets lots of food. I think that's the take home. That's the message, is just make sure you increase your volumes. You don't sit with the plan that was made when you were in hospital, a few days later, because it will mean that your baby will come back in, and it's so disheartening for you when you have to come back into hospital. and you know, it's the last thing on your mind. So just take that home.
Questions, right. Corrine has said, she's 34 weeks pregnant and hear a lot about colostrum harvesting in advance of baby arriving. I'd value your expert advice on this and when to begin, etc. Thank you for your time and support. Do you know this is our most common question? It's obviously out there, a lot of people thinking about it, so thank you for asking it. Well, we have talked about it before, but it's worth talking about again. We suggest that if you want to do it, and there is no obligation, that if you want to do it, you could start collecting from 37 weeks. You could have a practice at 36 and start collecting from 37. We don't recommend doing it any earlier than that. There is a very small association with going into premature labour, but not great, but we just don't want to put that risk on anyone. If you have a risk factor, we would be recommending it. If you're a mother who has diabetes, we will be recommending it. If you are anticipating a normal delivery and a healthy term baby and a good weight, there is no obligation on you to do it at all, only if you want to learn the skill, and you don't need to do it. So
I think that's it, really. It's learning a skill, and it's one less thing to learn when you're tired after having labour and you know, a baby that you've got to think about. And not have the luxury of, you know, just resting or whatever. So it's really important that you learn the skill if that's what you feel is important to you, but you don't have to do it to make milk. It's not going to change your outcome, it'll change your skill, and that might change your outcome. If your skills are better, it might change the outcome. Not actually doing it, but actually knowing how to do it will change the outcome, because your experience when you come into hospital, and that's really helpful for everybody.
So thinking about, you know, learning a new skill when you're really tired, which women are predominantly after having had a baby, is harder than learning it before you've had the baby. So when you come in for your 36-week scan, you should be given one of these, and if you aren't given one of these, please will you ask for it. They have boxes of them on the scan department. It says, oh, I know it'll be back to front for you all. It's off to the best start. So just ask your sonographer, whoever does your scan, please can I have a copy of Off to the Best Start. And it's got all sorts of information about feeding in it, but it also has about hand expressing, and it talks you through it. So there's a guide there on how to do it. And there's also on our website, so on the hospital website under the feeding pages on maternity, we have a little leaflet about collecting colostrum while you're pregnant, which will be a guide as well about doing it in the antenatal period, about how often to do it and how to do it, and why you might want to do it and why you perhaps don't need to do it. So have a look at that. So it's Off to the Best Start, you get it 36 weeks, and our leaflet that you get that's available on our webpage. So I hope that answers your questions, Corrine. Charlotte said hello, our normal Charlotte with her lovely baby Alicia. Venetia has said, hi there, I'm a first time mum here due in July. I'll probably have a lot of questions, but my first question is there anything I can do before my baby comes along to prepare my breasts and nipples for feeding? I'm so worried about being painful.
Nothing at all.
No.
Nothing at all. Just trust the fact that you will probably be breastfeeding fine, because most women do, and we assume that you will make milk and your baby will be able to attach. Sometimes it takes a bit longer for some than others, and people will be listening on here saying they had lots of problems, you know, but we assume that you will make a normal supply and that you'll be able to breastfeed. So you don't need to do any preparation. You could learn to hand express if that's what you'd like, and if that would make you feel more confident, that's absolutely fine, but you don't have to do that.
So I think going back to, you mentioned about being painful, the reason breastfeeding is painful for the majority of women is because the positioning attachment isn't as good as it can be. So what we're always looking for, and I'm going to use our trusty pictures that we use every week because they're so good, we are looking for a baby that is going to go on in this position. So it's making sure you get your positioning and attachment right. So ask for help. If you're in here and you're having your baby here at the hospital, ask for help. Get someone to give you a hand. You are aiming to have that baby going on with their head tipped back, upper lip just skimming the nipple, the breast is going to stay still, and the baby is the only part that's moving. So you could perhaps go and have a look at some things like the UNICEF Baby Friendly Initiative. We've got some really nice videos about positioning and attachment. Go and have a look at those, and they've got a little animation about what happens when the baby goes on, because the whole thing about it is, I was looking for a breast, is that if it's sore, it's because if this is the mouth and this is the nipple is stuck between a hard palate and a rasping tongue. That's the usual reason someone will be sore. If the baby goes on well, which means the nipple goes right at the top of the mouth, it goes right to the back of the mouth where the soft palate is, and the nipple is left untouched against a lovely soft pocket at the back, and the baby can milk the breast well. So if it's painful, not only is it painful for you, the baby is not going to get very much milk because they're not milking the breast well, but you're also going to find you're playing catch up with your milk supply, because your milk supply won't be driven as well if you're sore, because the baby's not feeding as well. So things like UNICEF Baby Friendly Initiative have some lovely videos. Global Health Media videos are lovely too. Go and have a watch of those about positioning and attaching your baby. There's a whole section on breastfeeding for mums, and they're beautiful. That's Global Health Media videos. So those are things that are worth looking at. But just get the help. Don't go on and struggle. Just get help. But no preparation needed.
And hopefully by July they'll be a little bit more available to you in the community.
Yeah.
I think gradually people are opening up a little bit more for face-to-face. Not yet, but I think they will in the next few months. And that's been the hardest thing, I think, for most breastfeeding mums, hasn't it?
Yeah.
The fact that there aren't many places that you can get face-to-face help, and that makes breastfeeding quite difficult.
It's been us. It's been us, and we're booked up 2 weeks in advance, which when you're feeding and got feeding problems now is a long time to wait. So good luck with that, and I hope you'll just sail through and we never meet you, Venetia, because things go so well. So
they are doing a fantastic job, I've got to say, in the community. Despite the things that have been happening, they do so much. Lots and lots of video calls and support on the telephone, which is absolutely fabulous.
And obviously you get your midwife for the first 10 days as well, so the midwifery team that you've got will be looking there to look after you for the first 10 days. We don't send you out from the hospital and out into the abyss. You are looked after. You will see somebody the day after you go home. So if you go home on a Thursday, you'll see someone on the Friday. If you need more support, you will see someone more frequently. If things are going well, you'll probably only see the midwife or the MSW on day 5 and day 10. But it's up to you to say that you need more help. So be vocal, say so. Say you need more help and they will provide it.
And they do talk to us as well, so they will ring us up if they've got any concerns and will ask us questions about what they should do next. So we all talk and join the dots. Everybody does. Even the health visitors talk to us. So we are all around to support you.
Andrea's come on to say she doesn't have a question, she just wants to say thank you to me. That's very nice for her help and support, from the help and support at the beginning of her journey. Tilly is almost 7 weeks and still feeding, and we wouldn't have got there without your help. Thank you very much. So we like to know that, don't we? We'd like to hear what happens to the babies that we meet. We always hope it's a good story, and that is nice to hear. So well done, you two.
Well done for your hard work.
Yeah. Fiona said, hello, at what age should we stop breastfeeding? Whenever you want. We'll take that up.
Babies rarely self-wean before their 3rd year. So babies happily will feed for the first 2 years of their life. And it doesn't mean that they're feeding like they are when they're 6 weeks old. Okay. They may just have it for comfort and, they're part of an extended relationship. And certainly in the 1st year, food is for fun before 1. So it's their main source of food is milk before they are 1. So they will wean beyond 6 months, and you'll start to introduce different flavours and textures. And they will learn to have food in their mouth, but it's not their primary source of food. So, first 6 months is exclusive milk feeding, and then you will feed them milk first, and then you'll offer them the solids after that until they're 1. And then after 1, you start to make it much more formal meals for them. And then the relationship is entirely up to you, and there is no limit to when you should breastfeed. But World Health says that you should breastfeed for a couple of years, and UNICEF says breastfeed at least for 1 year. But it doesn't matter, and babies are babies. They're your babies, and a 2-year-old is a baby. So it's personal.
Yeah, totally up to you. And there are many women out there who will be feeding babies of children of 2 and 3 and maybe beyond. And we just maybe don't see them, but it is quite normal.
And there's a lot of health benefits to both of you. Your baby gets the continued protection, and when your baby's sick, it's comfort, but also the benefits to you, to supporting breast cancers, hip fractures, osteoporosis, all of those things, heart disease. It's really important for you as a woman to protect your body, and breastfeeding does that. And if you breastfeed well for longer, it also, if you have got GDM, gestational diabetes, you're much less likely to develop type 2 diabetes if you have long-term breastfeeding. So
I think it drops it by 15% per year that you breastfeed. So it really is quite considerable. Yeah, it's a significant drop. So the more you breastfeed, the more protected you are from going on to develop type 2 diabetes. So it is
and
really
also, long-term breastfeeding, they talk about reduced belly fat. So if you turn sideways and look at a mum's tummy, they have 2 inches less belly fat than somebody who has, breastfed for a short time maybe, or not at all. So it has benefits to your body as well. So, it's all good stuff.
And then on the other hand, there are some babies who will decide they've got to a certain age, and I can think of my niece who decided that at 9 months that was it, no more, didn't want any breast, and she decided that was it. So there are, it goes 2 ways. Whilst most babies are very happy to carry on feeding and would feed for ad infinitum, but others may not. So it is very, very personal to you and your baby. But the recommendation, as Naomi has said, is exclusive for 6 months, alongside other foods for up to a year, and up to 2 years and beyond is still beneficial. But, so that's.
And the longer you breastfeed, the less likely your baby needs orthodontic.
Yeah.
When they're teenagers, they don't need braces. It opens up the palate and makes the spacing in the teeth wider. So long-term breastfeeding has really good effects on dental formation. So you have babies with straight teeth.
Yeah.
When they're older.
Save you money.
Yeah.
Right. That's where we were. That was that one. So Charlotte's come on again. Any tips on how much milk I should give Alicia? Also tips on how I can get Alicia to eat more chunky food. Sorry to ask a silly question. Not silly at all. But I think it's just a case of putting chunky foods in front of her and seeing how she copes with them, Charlotte. It's that baby-led weaning, and it's just giving them those things that they can pick up, try, and put down again. There's quite a bit of information out there about baby-led weaning. An organisation that's worth looking at for this sort of thing is First Steps Nutrition, and they have quite a lot about complementary foods, so weaning foods. So that's really worth having a look at, Charlotte, and anyone else who's thinking about that. First Steps Nutrition is a charity run by a lady called Helen Crawley. It's all evidence-based, non-biased, research-backed information. Well worth a look when you're thinking about, if you are thinking about formula foods, because it has about formula milks, but all complementary foods as well. Have I forgotten anything?
Just milk. Well, she's not quite 1 yet, is she?
No, she's not.
So it's breast milk or any infant formula. But after 1 they can have cow's milk. And I think the other thing for interest is, I always say, there's a rainbow of colour on her plate, nothing beige, and that often means that they have much more joy at looking at the food, and it looks more interesting to them. And I think that's for all children and everybody, is give them a good array of colour on the plate so that it's exciting and it looks nice, and that always stimulates them visually as well, and that might help her, have joy from eating if it looks interesting.
Yeah, and I think that was something that Helen Crawley has spoken at many conferences that we've been to, and it was quite interesting her talking about the bought foods. So a lot of the bought foods that you can get, particularly the snacks, they come in these lovely, bright, vibrant packaging, but when you open them up, the foods are really bland in colour. They're all muted and neutral.
Beige.
Exactly. Whereas actually the foods that you might make at home, and it doesn't take much to do them, will be much more interesting and more nutritious actually. So it's well worth it. Have a look at First Steps Nutrition. Right. So not a silly question at all, Charlotte. I'm sure others were thinking the same. Now I hope I'm not going to spoil your name because it looks beautiful. I think it's Chane. She says, I have a 3-week-old who appears to be cluster feeding for the last couple of days. I'm struggling to keep up with the demand at my breasts, and they're becoming tender too. Any advice on how to tackle her needs better? I did harvest my colostrum, but used all my supply in the first week while we were working out our latch. Feeling a little stuck at the minute. Oh.
So is that tender breasts or is it tender nipples? You don't specify really. So if it's your breast, is it because they're filling because she's feeding more? Or is it tender nipples because your attachment isn't very good, which are 2 separate things? And the more you take off, the more you're going to make, and it might be that she's just stepping up the supply so that she's actually trying to get you to make more milk, and that's what she's telling you is, I need more milk. Is your positioning and attachment really good? I think that would be my first question. Have you got it really good? You know, make sure that you have that lovely positioning, which means that the baby is underneath the breast, so the chin is leading, so it's much lower than you think. Comes right underneath, and the nose is at the nipple. So when you start feeding, you line your baby up, they should be there. They shouldn't be mouth to nipple. So that's before the mouth opens, and then they lift their head back, so the head is free. They lift their head back, and the breast then is in the right place to go onto the breast and take the nipple to the top of the back of the roof of the mouth. So the head's gone back, and the nipple is placed in the most brilliant place, just below the gum ridge, the top gum ridge, and it slides across the palate and goes to the back of the roof of the mouth, and the chin is underneath on the breast tissue. And so they take a really big mouthful in, and it could be that you've managed to make enough milk in the first couple of weeks, which is sustained, and then as the attachment has continued to be not quite tip-top, the supply drops down a little bit, because then, you know, it's what you take off, you make, and if it's not quite far enough on there, you might not be making quite enough. So you really need to get your attachment really checked. Are you under the midwife still? If they are, then get someone to check your positioning again. You could get your health visitor, I think you'll probably be around about that time when she sees you, and get some support there, or you know, local support, and or call us if you're continuing to have problems. Is she gaining weight, and is she pooing and peeing? I think those are the other things.
I was just thinking that too. Yeah.
You know, is she reaching her milestones, and is she only reaching her milestones because you're feeding all the time and not having time out? And you know, is it tender because you're filling, or is it tender because she's on your nipples inappropriately? And that will help. That will be helpful to know, because it's two different things.
So I think we need to reach out and get some support here.
Yeah, you can have a conversation with us on the phone. That's absolutely fine.
But don't struggle on. It's a bit like we were saying earlier. You know, if it's painful, then it can have a knock-on effect. It's not just isolation pain. It means that babies usually aren't getting quite enough. You're not driving your supply. So do give us a call, or if you've got a health visitor coming to visit soon, make the most of them.
We are very, very busy, so our appointments aren't the next day, I'm afraid. They're usually in a couple of weeks at the moment, so you need to get support instantly, more close to you. So it's worth, you know, contacting your local healthcare teams first, and call us as well if you need to, but you won't be seen instantly. Yeah. We're very, very busy.
But we can do telephone.
But we can help, and we will support you as we can.
We're very good at supporting people to improve their milk supply in the meantime. So whilst we may not see, you know, if you do end up coming to clinic, we might not see you in the short term, but what we can do is put a plan in place to make sure you are coping and improving while you wait to come and see us.
The other thing is we probably won't see you on the ward either. We hope we don't see you on the ward, because we don't need to see you on the ward. The midwives on the ward and the maternity care assistants are fantastic in supporting you. So unless you've got something that's going on, you've been readmitted, or you've got medical problems, we don't normally get involved with your care on the ward. So if you're normal and you've had normal birth and you've got no medical problems, we don't routinely see you on the ward to support you to breastfeed, because that's what the staff can do very, very well. So we're very happy to answer questions by the staff, but we wouldn't normally come and see you routinely, because we've got quite a lot of commitments with mums that are coming back in that have had problems, and you know, other things, doing clinics and teaching and things like that. But we're very happy to talk to you on the phone, absolutely, but we wouldn't routinely see you to help you breastfeed on the ward if you're normal.
Anyway, our colleagues, our midwives and MSWs love helping. Yeah, love helping with feeding. Yeah. If we saw everybody, there would be, not that we have the time, but they would be a bit disappointed.
They'd be de-skilled.
Yeah. Amina has said, hi, we had a tongue tie snip about 4 weeks ago. Whilst it feels so much better, he started clicking whilst feeding and struggles to keep the suction, leading to frustration. He's nearly 11 weeks now. His poos have turned dark green again. Before we remove another food group to address poo and sickness, could this still be tongue tie issues post-snip?
Sounds like it might be. Have you got access to your health visitor specialist support? There are some enhanced breastfeeding health visitors which may be able to watch you feed at 11 weeks and just make sure that the attachment is right. I'm going to go back to these videos, these pictures. This is what you need to be doing, making sure that your baby's the nipple is right up to the top of your baby's palate. Did your baby have a high palate? because that can cause clicking and poor attachment even when the tongue tie is being cut. The tongue tie, the clicking is always the last thing to go if your baby was doing it before. If not, sometimes it develops once the tongue's been snipped because the tongue is more mobile. But it could be that you haven't quite got a good vacuum in your baby's mouth, and if you direct the nipple right up to the top of the roof of the mouth, and you can sometimes do that with something called a flipple, where you pull the nipple back a little bit with your finger. Can you see that? So you just put your finger there and you pull it back slightly so it's back on itself, and then when you put your baby onto the breast, you let go quickly and it flips it up to the top of the roof of the mouth, and sometimes that allows a really good seal on the palate and allows the clicking. It stops the clicking and stabilizes the breast in the mouth and stops the baby sort of slipping off and struggling a little bit. You might find that helps. If you look at Flipple on YouTube, it will come up, and you might find that there's a video that you can watch to see if you're not sure what we mean. But it's just literally pulling the nipple back a little bit, and the underside. So you've got more of this breast being shown, this part of your breast being offered first, and then the chin hits the breast, and then you let go, and it just really makes a good seal. And it could be that you haven't quite got your baby far enough onto the breast, and that is the reason. It's not always the tongue tie, it's the positioning and attachment, and it's always crucial to make that right as well, even when you've had your tongue tie cut. It's rarely a magic wand having a tongue tie cut. You've got to work really hard with that. So if you can ask your health visitors to see if there's any enhanced support with them. It may be that one of the local support groups can do a Zoom with you just to check that as well. We see babies up to 6 weeks, unfortunately, so it's your health visitors, the enhanced team with your health visitors that are the specialist team to look after you at your baby's age. But just make sure that you get that positioning and attachment right, and see if you can improve that latch and get maybe a better vacuum, and that might help. Try it and see. Sometimes if you put a bit of support under your baby's chin like this, and the soft bit between the two bones, or the three bones really, it's like a triangle. You put your finger sort of under your baby's chin, sometimes that increases the tongue function and just teaches, it's like a bit of physio, it helps the baby support its suckling skills, and that sometimes helps them as well for a few feeds, just to show them how to use their tongue a bit better. Something you could try as well at home.
Okay. Lisa has said, hi, baby Noah is now 8 weeks and feeding is now going really well. Thank you so much for your help and support. I noticed during the couple of warm days I was feeding Noah more frequently. Does feeding frequency generally increase during the summer months due to thirst? A bit. I can't say I've really noticed it personally, but
if it's really hot and you're thirsty, your baby will step up feeds as well a little bit. You know, most milk is water, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean it's 80% water, isn't it? But you are providing them with all their nutrition, so it is likely that you would be feeding a bit more, but I don't know that
massively.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I was
might
saying.
have another extra feed in a day, and you know, if you're thirsty, it could be that you're hot and sweaty, and your baby might want a little bit more to drink.
And it's worth saying, we don't give water. We just don't give water to babies that are being breastfed. You do provide everything they need. They don't need anything else. They might just feed a little bit more frequently. They might take slightly less of those feeds, but just more frequently. But it doesn't matter where you are in the world. No matter how hot it is, babies don't need anything other than breast milk. No water needed. But well done you for getting to 8 weeks, Lisa. That's fantastic, and well done to Noah on that too. Dory said, hi, I'm 34 weeks pregnant and keep hearing from family members that women in our family don't tend to have enough milk to breastfeed for long. Is there anything I can do now or before the birth to give us better chances? I feel like my breasts have not really grown and I'm worried it might be a negative sign.
We don't know till you've had your baby.
No.
We assume everyone will make milk. Sometimes you don't make enough milk because you didn't get help and your positioning wasn't quite right, and your baby didn't stimulate the breast quite as well as they could. And it's something as simple as that. It's nothing to do with your anatomy or genetics or anything else. So we'll assume you will make milk, get support, protect your milk supply when you've had your baby. So if your baby's not feeding well, just do lots of hand expressing in the early days, and then pump if you feel that you need to do that as well. But with advice, get some support, and don't do it if you don't need to. But I think that we would assume you'll make milk until you don't.
I know, because you say, Dory, that your breasts have not really grown, which would suggest that there has been some growth. We're not looking for big amounts of growth. We're looking for some breast changes usually. We find that really reassuring. Most women will tell us that when they were first pregnant they were slightly more tender, and that during the pregnancy they grew a bit. They don't have to grow lots. So if if both of those things have happened, then that's a reassuring sign anyway. And yet there are some women who don't really notice much change, and they do go on to have enough milk. But I think, yes, being aware of what happens at birth, making sure that you get it going quickly, because it's what you do after the baby's born has the impact, nothing before. I know we talk about expressing before the baby's born, but that has no impact on your supply. It's only after the baby is born that you impact on your supply. And the more you do after the baby is born, the better response you have for your milk supply, and the better you are at stimulating it. We know that things have changed a lot. I don't know where or at what point your family had babies, but Naomi has worked here for a long time, and we'll talk about how practices have changed within this hospital greatly. How babies are always kept with their parents. They're always kept with their mum. Babies don't go into nurseries overnight.
Some mums used to have sleeping tablets, and babies were given water overnight, sugar water overnight, and they were kept in the nursery and then given back to mums in the morning. And that has a huge impact on the supply in the early days. So it's early stimulation and protecting supply that's the thing, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's really getting it going in those early days makes the biggest difference.
And expressing when your baby's not feeding well, pumping if your baby continues to not feed well, and lots and lots of feeding and support, and get good positioning and attachment. And that is the key to making milk.
And I think we've said it on here so many times, but when we're doing our breastfeeding clinics, predominantly we have these women coming in, and maybe 1% have got more milk than they need, but 99% will have not enough milk. So don't worry about feeding and expressing. Don't be concerned, and people do get concerned about having an oversupply. It's very rare. An oversupply is not something we see that often, but we do meet many, many mothers who do not produce enough milk, and that's because they haven't pushed their supply in the beginning.
And it's that early skin to skin, so skin to skin at the birth in the first hour, uninterrupted, so you have your baby close to you, not on your partner but on you, because that's driving the hormones. And also you have an early feed, and we always know babies that have had a good feed at the very, very beginning in the first hour have a good supply a bit later, or they're imprinted to breastfeed. If they've never done that, it's much harder to get them to breastfeed later. But also the side that the baby's fed on first, you've got more milk in that breast. And mums that have instrumental deliveries, that have had cesareans, often don't get prolonged skin to skin, because there's just the sheer fact that you're tired, you've had a long labour, you can't hold your baby, you've perhaps got a spinal or something, and you're feeling shaky, and that has a huge impact on your milk supply. That's nearly all our mums that come back in have had cesareans or forceps deliveries. They're the ones that come back in with poor supply and low weight gain. And so, we can't say it enough that you have to do it yesterday, not tomorrow. You have to stimulate your breasts immediately, even if you don't feel like doing it, because you'll be sitting in our clinic at 2 weeks saying, I wish I'd known that. And that's exactly what women say, I wish I'd known this before. So we're telling you now, you have to do it.
Yeah, so the biggest impact is that uninterrupted skin to skin at the beginning, and even if you're having to have stitches, keep the baby on you. Get your partner to be the person who's keeping an eye that both you and baby are all right, that your baby's airway is okay. So don't hand the baby over to your partner just because you're having, having stitches.
Actually, it's good pain relief
it's
for you.
It's brilliant to have your baby here.
The hormones will release pain relief for you, and you'll be more comfortable if you have your baby with you.
Yeah.
You'll feel less pain.
And it just brings out that natural breast seeking and breastfeeding behaviour from the baby. It's innate. We talked about the global health media videos earlier. Go and watch the one about early days and watch this baby being born. They do a video of 3 babies, and they just do it. They just go on the breast because they are hardwired to breastfeed at birth. It's all primed.
To be.
Yeah. So taking them away and putting them in a cot or in somebody else's arms stops that and interrupts that. Nobody who is raising puppies or any animals would separate mother and baby, because they know it interrupts that mothering and baby instinct.
And lambs don't get colostrum, they're in real problems.
Yeah.
So it's very powerful stuff, that colostrum, and really important that babies get it in the early hours. So it's we're talking the first hour here. And as soon as, if you can't do it in the first hour, you just are on it. And if your baby's separated for any reason, then you do hand expressing. You have to do it, even if you feel exhausted. You know, it just, you get payback. So important, isn't it?
Yeah. So I think Dorry, thinking about maybe making sure you know how to hand express. So think about making sure you get this leaflet when you come into the 6-week scan, making sure that you know how you're going to hand express. You don't necessarily have to collect it, but make sure you know how to do it, and making sure that it says in your birth plan, and your partner knows this, that you want uninterrupted skin-to-skin contact in the first hour up to the time that your baby has their first feed. And that means the weighed, they are kept on you and not moved, because they don't go through their normal cycle of what they do if they get removed. So your partner can have their cuddle later and until they're fed, and this will stand you in such good stead, as Naomi said. So those are the things we would suggest to do. Ooh. There's a meeting going on and it keeps trying to interrupt I keep having to shut it down. Charlie has said her son is 9 months old and I'm combination feeding, formula in the day at nursery and breastfeeding at night. He's also recently really dropped off his bottles and only going through an ounce or two. He's also isn't taking any water and spits it out all the time. We've tried sippy cups and open cups. I'm worried he isn't getting enough fluid, although he's doing plenty of wet nappies. Should I be worried? Is there anything else I can do to encourage him to drink more?
How old?
9 months.
So he's having lots of food as well at nursery, is he? He's getting does he take the bottles at nursery?
Yeah, bottle and formula at the day in nursery.
He's getting plenty in the day, and he's getting some weaned foods as well.
He's dropped off his bottles, is what she's saying. He's having only an ounce or two at a time. I think just up the frequency then. Just offer him more frequently. So he's
teething. It might be that he's got a bit of earache or something, and he's not. Sometimes they just feel a bit uncomfortable, or if he's had a cold or something. It could be something as simple as that, and just change. But it is worth trying other things, trying different types of cups, bottles, spouts, and just see if he'll take something else.
Yeah.
Does he take breast milk in a bottle? Does he take breast milk in a cup as opposed to the formula milk? And is he feeding more at night? Is he waking up to feed?
Which is what you often see.
Yeah, because that's where he gets all his calories. So if you're breastfeeding a lot at night, is it that he's just not very hungry during the day?
Because they need an amount in 24 hours, and if they take it at one point of the day, they don't need it so much later. But I would say as well, maybe just a little, if he's not taking huge amounts, just do little and often as well. So we'll see how he gets on.
But if he's peeing and pooing normally, and if you can get him weighed, see if your health visitor can get him weighed at sometime. Ring your health visitor and have a chat with her about it. She's your primary carer for your baby up till 5 and beyond. Just check that he's on his right centile on the curve in his red book. It could be just worth having a quick check to make sure that he's not dropping off.
Yeah, and the stools aren't too dry as well as an indicator. So anyway, good luck with that, Charlie. And I know you've tried all different cups, but it's always worth trying them again. You can just rotate them, because at some point he just might click with one of them. So just don't give them away yet. Think about maybe trying them again. Becky has said her baby's 2 days old and there's a possible tongue tie. We're booked in to have it seen, to cut it, to be seen or cut privately next Wednesday. Do you have any tips on making it to next Wednesday? What positions to try? He has a very shallow latch. Do you want to do some laid back?
I think so, yes. So the best position is something where your baby's on gravity, so it's not using its mouth at all to hold on to
Turn the camera.
So more easily for you on a 2-day-old baby. It's very early. We don't tend to worry about babies that aren't feeding in the first week almost, because they're just learning to use their mouth. This is a new dance partner learning to dance with you, and it's good that you're not having it done till next week, because it will enable the baby to have the opportunity to maximise its tongue function before you do that. And you've got to get your positioning right before you get the tongue tie cut, because it won't be any better afterwards if your positioning is not great, and you'll be disappointed. But one of the positions is what we call face planting. So basically you're lying backwards about 45 degrees and your baby is across your breast, so the tummy button is on your opposite breast to the one you're feeding on, and your baby is face down like that. It's not on its side, it's face down, and literally you're plonking your baby on top of the breast, and its feet are going under your armpit, and your shoulders are supported, and your baby will bob its head, put its hands on either side of your breast, and it will just fall onto the breast, and it doesn't need to use its mouth to hold on, because gravity is keeping your baby there. So you might find that the latch is a bit deeper and it might help, but also it pushes the tongue forward a little bit because gravity is working with you, so that they can maximise the function of the tongue as well. So have a go with that and see if that helps. The other position you can use is this position, which is holding your baby side. You can lean back a little bit like that, but sometimes the babies bob a lot, and mums find that quite hard in the early days if the baby's bobbing a lot. So you might find across your baby, across your chest might be a little bit easier in the first few weeks when you're just starting. Your midwife is, presumably you're at home, your midwife is going to be caring for you still, so ask for a visit, or ask if you can go for an appointment when your baby's hungry, to support your breastfeeding, to help you get your positioning and attachment correct. Use the local charities, and also if you're still struggling, we can also support you, so do call us and talk to us as well. But good luck with that, but just maximise your baby's opportunity to feed and protect your milk supply. Make sure that while your baby's learning to feed and you're struggling, that you're doing lots of hand expressing on day 2, and stimulating your breasts lots and lots and lots to make milk ready for when your baby can feed. Because if you can do anything with milk, if you don't have milk as well and your baby's not feeding, it's really, really hard. And babies are driven by flow. So if there's no flow, they don't suck. So once they've started to get milk, they expect to get milk easily, and if they don't, they switch off. So protect your milk supply, make sure that you get absolutely loads of milk, and protect it until you're sure your baby can breastfeed properly. And that means that you may need to start pumping tomorrow to support it, rather than hand expressing. Certainly when you're getting 5 or 10 mils hand expressing, you should be using a pump and collecting milk, but really pump 8 times in 24 hours, so that you're really stimulating your breast if your baby's not feeding properly. If it's not transferring milk well, it's not suckling for very long, you need to be stimulating the breast to make more milk, and so it's ready for when you are able to feed your baby. So just keep going, but really make sure you've got access to a breast pump. If you don't have one, ask your community midwives if they've got one they can loan you. It's just for a very small fee for a deposit, and then you can have that for a week or 2 usually. Make sure you just get on it. Don't stop, and keep expressing. Hand express today, pump from tomorrow, and keep pumping if your milk supply, if your baby's not able to transfer milk well. Transferring milk is suckling.
Yeah.
It's suckling and swallowing. So if your baby's not doing much of that because it can't feed well, you have to do it for your baby, and that means pumping or hand expressing.
Okay.
I hope that helps, and let us know how you get on.
Good luck with that, Becky.
Yeah.
Venetia's come back and said thank you very much. Virginia said, hi ladies, nice to see you. What should I bring to the hospital to be ready for breastfeeding? Is nipple cream a must? Can I use coconut oil instead? I don't know, what is the thought about coconut oil?
I think, good positioning and attachment is the most important thing. Are you allergic to lanolin? That's the other thing. Do you get sensitive to wool when you're wearing wool? Does it make you itchy? If it makes you really itchy when you're wearing wool, lanolin is wool. So, you might get sensitive from something like lanolin. Is it organic coconut? Is it for babies? Is it for your nipples? And you probably need to rub it off once you've put it on with that one. So,
there are lots of creams out there.
Remember, it is a nut, and I think something that's not nut based is probably better on your nipples than something that is nut based.
Yeah, there are lots of sort of preparatory, literally made specifically for breasts, things that are just creams. But actually, if things are going well, you won't need them, which is what Naomi's saying as well. I think the thing to bear in mind as well is if your plan is to breastfeed, is to make sure you've taken your bra off before the baby arrives. That's something that we would love to get written into the notes for when mums are coming in, is to get that bra off before your baby arrives in the world. If you're going to have a drip, get the bra off before that, because what happens is you end up with when you want to take the bra off, it's all hung around the tubing of your drip because we can't get it off. So be prepared to not have a bra on, which would be really great. Think about what you're going to wear, and something that's easy access as well. So those are things you might want to think about to bring in.
So, skin to skin, isn't it?
Yeah, we want.
Comfy.
Yeah, and you don't really want a t-shirt that's all bunched up here so you can't see your baby because the baby's there. So something that maybe is front opening, or use one of our gowns or something like that, or you can go topless if you're happy to. We don't mind at all. But just think about when that baby comes, you want that baby skin to skin, and we don't really want a bra in the way, because they do get in the way.
But we don't encourage things like nipple shields or dummies or anything like that. That it's not necessarily something that you will need to have for your baby to feed it. So don't buy them unless you have talked to somebody that suggests that that's what you ought to do. That's more involved with breastfeeding. But normally we would say babies don't need things like that to breastfeed because they're replacing the breastfeeding often. So nothing really, is it? Just yourself.
It's just
that skill, expressing skill.
It's what's so fantastic, isn't it? Really, what do you need? A bit of confidence.
Yeah.
A bit of confidence and some support, because it's a learnt skill, because it takes time to learn. So come in confident that you're going to manage it. Like when you go and learn how to drive a car, you're going to do it at the end of it, or whatever skill you might learn. But just believe you're going to do it. Self-belief goes a very, very long way.
New dance partner, think of Strictly. They don't know what they're doing on day one, and by the end they're champions.
Yeah, absolutely. Bill Bailey, for instance.
Yes, exactly what you'll be doing with your baby. You'll be learning to dance with them, and they learn as much as you learn. Yeah. And if one of you's got good skills, some babies are more natural than others at feeding in the early days. It's a normal thing that some take less support than others to breastfeed. Some come out like hoovers and just and others just are very sleepy and need a bit of cajoling. And I was talking in clinic today about, her first baby was, and I always say some babies are born to eat and some, live to eat, and some babies eat to live. And that might be your baby, it doesn't care about food for the rest of its life. They just want to play as children and sit on the floor and not bother about food, and others are just constantly around your feet saying, I'm hungry. And that's your baby. And they start like that sometimes. So, every baby is individual, and it's not just a breastfeeding problem. It's personality, it's genetics, it's everything. So, it's very individual.
So I think that perhaps go do a bit of research about the coconut oil, because I don't think we can clearly stay on that one, but so there are lots of creams out there. But hopefully...
nut-based is probably not a good idea on nipples in the early days.
But hopefully, Virginia, you won't need anything, because it will go well and you won't need anything. Oh well. Right, Fiona has come back and said, oh wow, so much information I didn't know. I love these lives, so helpful, thank you. So thank you, Fiona, for that endorsement. Carolina has said, she's been on here before, hello, thank you for these sessions, they're really helpful now. Also watched whilst I was pregnant. My baby boy is 10.5 weeks old now. He started sleeping longer during the night and doesn't wake up so often. It's about 4.5 hours now. It's nothing to complain about. However, I feel very full in the morning, and in the morning he feeds very fast and loud. Yes, that's because you've lots of milk.
Right.
As he's very hungry, swallowing the air. I normally finish a big evening feed at 8 p.m, both breasts, and he goes to sleep till 1 a.m. when I give him a smallish feed from one breast, and then he's up at 5:30, and that's when he gets the morning feed from the other breast. Will my milk production slow down eventually during the night to adapt, or should I pump a little bit before giving him a morning feed?
How long has he been doing that sort of longer sleep for? If you've just started doing it, it will damp down a little bit. He should settle down. Your breasts will realise that you're not using them in the same way. And he might even drop the one in the middle of the night eventually, and that makes you even fuller. But I think if you take it off, you might make yourself a bit fuller. You could take some off till you're comfy if it feels really full, and that might be the opportunity to freeze it. And you can use that for, if you're going out, it's the time when you might want to collect a bit of milk so that you've got a bit spare. If you want to go to the hairdressers, that would be nice, wouldn't it? And
yes, they're opening soon.
Yeah, and you can also use it when you wean your baby at 6 months. You can mix up porridge and things with it, and it's in the freezer. So, it's helpful to have, and it won't be that many days until you start weaning. goes very quickly when you get to 12 weeks almost. So you're halfway there. So it might be that just taking a little bit off till you're comfy, you can collect it that way. And you can put it in one bottle for 5 days and then put it in the freezer, so you can get a little bottle, of what you've got rather than just drips and drabs. But obviously, if you're just using little bits, then freeze it in smaller amounts so you're not defrosting a whole bottle and not needing it. And that might be helpful for you, but I think just take it off till you're comfy is the thing to say, not at the pump session, because you will then keep pushing it.
But well done you. I mean, 10.5 weeks, that's fantastic.
It's nice for other mums to hear that.
Yeah, because you have been messaging for a while. I do recognise your name. It's lovely to see. Ashley has said, hello Alex and Naomi, my twins are now 5.5 weeks. They were born at 37.5 weeks. I'm tandem breastfeeding them and doing a bit of bottle feeding express milk. With both the breast and bottle, they both fall asleep on a feed. Is this because they're still quite young? They also have long jaundice, which was checked by the jaundice clinic as fine. It's breastfeeding jaundice. They both feed every hour or occasionally every 2 hours, and I'm thinking it might be that they aren't getting enough milk at a feed because they're falling asleep rather than coming away from the breast. Do you have any suggestions as to why they aren't coming away from a feed, or do they think as they get older, the jaundice wears off, that they will come away naturally from a feed? I'm using nipple shields just in case this info makes any difference. Thanks. So they're not coming off on their own, I think is what we're saying here, isn't it? And they're feeding very frequently from the sounds of it.
They're reaching their milestones, so they're gaining weight okay. Have you had them checked recently for weight gain, and they're pooing and peeing? Are you seeing lots of wet and dirty nappies? They should be pooing still pretty much every day. At 5.5 weeks, we'd expect from about 6 weeks the poos go down a bit, and are they nice big yellow poos? Because that's a good sign that they're getting plenty of milk. Nipple shields, they do get a little bit less through nipple shields, so it might be that the flow is slower and they're not getting as much as you think. But if they're falling asleep in a bottle as well, it just might be that they've got to catch up a little bit. They're a bit young. And haven't you done amazingly well?
Absolutely.
Haven't you done amazingly
really
well? That's such a big thing to do. Tandem feeding twins on breast milk.
It's fantastic.
Unbelievable. Really hard work. But I think that, is there a twin support group near you? Have you been on that? There's some really good
online, won't it?
There's some really good Facebook pages on Twins UK and that sort of thing. So
Tamber as well.
Well, that's Twins UK.
Okay, so it changed its name.
And I think there's Twins and Triplets and More is another good page. And you might find that talking to other mums with twins might normalise it a little bit for you to make you realise how well you're doing. And they will give you sort of what they were doing at 5 weeks, and then now they're 10 weeks, and this is what's happening now. And also your health visitor is also a good source of support for you. But I think that if you're not sure and you don't think your babies are gaining enough weight, then you need to be looking at maybe attaching without the nipple shield. That's something that you could try and do to see if that improves the flow, which keeps your babies awake. And is it the fact that you've got low flow in your breast because the nipple shield, or because you've got slightly lower supply if they're not suckling really well?
What about compressions?
Yeah, I was just about to say.
Oh, sorry. Preempting you.
Yeah, we know these things. And also, maybe step up some pumping and see if that increases the flow a little bit. Milk takes 2 days to change. So it's why women struggle so much. They don't see change immediately, but it takes 2 to 4 days to make more milk. So, upping it a little bit. I know you're pumping and giving express breast milk, and having 2 babies is hard work to manage and pump. But you might find if you do some sort of power pumping, that might increase your milk supply a little bit, and it might just wake the babies up a little bit more if they're a bit slow with the flow. Is it the right teat for them that you've got? It might be worth changing the teat. If you're giving bottles and they're sleepy, is the flow a bit slow for them? There's lots of different things that you could look at, but if you're not sure, talk to your health visitor. I think you're probably coming up for a check fairly soon, aren't you?
Yeah, should do. Yeah, should be having a 6-week check
soon. You should be weighing in reasonably frequently when you're feeding like that, just to make sure that they are meeting their milestones. But the suckling, swallowing, if they're not doing much of that, and then they're not weeing or pooing very much, you should be getting them weighed this week. If they're suckling reasonably well and they're peeing and pooing for England, then you probably can be reassured that they're gaining weight, and then they may be that they're doing more than you think. but they're only just over 37 weeks, so when they were born, so they've got a bit of catching up to do, and so it's hard work, you know, to make sure that, but the compression is very good. Did you know how to do compression? So compress your breast when your baby's suckling, and when your baby stops suckling you let go, and then when your baby starts suckling again you compress. So if you can do it hands free, that would be great. If you're tandem feeding, you've got good pillows and things, but just make sure that you get, you know, that you can compress your breasts and push more milk in, because that drives flow, and that also drives milk production.
Yeah, keeping your hands well away from where their mouths are, as far back against the chest wall as you can go, otherwise you'll knock them off.
Yeah.
But well done you, 5.5 weeks of fully breastfed, you know, babies. That's fantastic, Ashley. It was absolutely fabulous.
Do call someone and talk to them. Don't sit and worry and then find your babies aren't gaining weight or doing anything that they should be doing.
So have a look at those nappies, pay attention to those, be good. Right, Charlotte's come back on. Hello Charlotte, she definitely gets our frequent flyer award, as our Charlotte. Another question, any tips on different ways to get Alicia to crawl, as she's very strong legs, and also Alicia's 11 months old now, so almost a year, more teeth coming. I'm always watching, shut up, watching these chats to learn more and become better at being a mum. As when I became a mum to Alicia, I had low confidence, but with the help of my family and midwives, these sessions, it's got much better. Well, you're a perfect mum to your baby, Charlotte. She's very lucky to have you. But don't encourage her to walk any earlier than she needs to, or crawl, because tell you what, yes, you'll be so grateful at this point in time when you can put a baby down and know that's where they're going to be. You just don't realise how lucky you are, because when that day comes when your baby's no longer sitting there and it's in something,
that's the end of your cups of tea.
So you're going to be, it's going to be a very different world. So, and it's very normal.
So she's ready.
Yeah, it's very normal with first babies that you're looking to the next stage, but cherish the stage you're in, because they do pass so quickly. When you look back, they will have passed really quickly. So speak to women who have got children who are through university and out the other side, and it's gone in a blink of an eye. So
definitely.
So enjoy her just as she is. Lisa said, thank you very much, useful to know, looking forward to some warmer weather soon. So am I. I couldn't believe I was gardening in the snow. Louise said, I'm a little concerned about breastfeeding once I've had the COVID vaccine. What's your advice on this? Many thanks. I think there's no concerns, is it? It's not a live vaccine, so I don't think we've got any concerns about it. Worth looking at the obs and gynae, wasn't it? That way we thought the most up-to-date information was.
Yeah.
And the other place you could
RCOG.
Yeah, RCOG, yeah.
They've got a website there with all the advice, the latest advice on the vaccine. I think the thing is that the usual side effects that you get might make you feel a bit sleepy, and you might find that it's really hard to do much for the day after you've had it done. You know, paracetamol is safe to take, and you know, just make sure that somebody's around to help you if you're feeling a bit rough. Other than that, I think it's absolutely fine.
Yeah, and the other place to look is Breastfeeding Network. Wendy Jones, Dr. Wendy Jones from the Breastfeeding Network, is a pharmacist with a speciality in lactation, and she's put information up in the past as well, so it's worth having a look on there. And much as, you know, there's been a lot of talk about people feeling unwell after a vaccine. I have to say I was lucky and I didn't, but actually what that is showing is you're having a response, so that's a good thing, because you'll get a response, which means you're protected. So that much as it's not nice to be ill at the time, it is good to have that response.
And I think I read some research saying that the vaccine passes protection over to your baby as well. That they found that, so it's, you know, good protection for your baby too.
Yeah. So RCOG and Breastfeeding Network. If you do a Google search for either of those, you'll find out information about that. But to our knowledge, there is no risk. There is no issue.
Just the usual things that everybody gets, and just have some paracetamol if you're feeling a bit, you know, tender. But also just rest. If your body's saying rest, and just cuddle your baby and rest.
Yeah.
A
baby moon. They're known as baby moons. When you just, your baby won't mind if you're not doing things. Your baby will be quite happy if you're cuddled up in bed together. You know, having a big cuddle. They really won't mind. Samana has said, thank you so much for your amazing sessions. I find them extremely helpful. My son is 9 weeks old. He rarely refuses the breast, no matter how many times I offer him, but then he has more wet, dirty nappies and spits more. I occasionally top up with 40 ml of express milk, advised by my midwife, but before being discharged in week 3. According to his 6-week review, he was gaining 25 grams per day. I wonder when I can stop giving the top up. So if he's gaining 25 grams a day, I think we'd like you to carry on with that top up just at the minute, because he's at the slightly lower end of what we'd want a boy to be gaining. unless you can encourage him to get more food from the breast. Are you trying compressions? Compressions will give him additional milk at the breast, which Naomi just showed. That would really help. Any thoughts? Any other thoughts on that?
That was a few weeks ago when you were doing that, wasn't it? Have you had him weighed recently to see what his milestones are now?
Yeah.
Just to see whether he's caught up, because I think quite often if you don't do something different, you don't see change. So if you're just doing the same thing, it might be that you're not going to see change, and he's got used to having that. And maybe he steps up his feeding a little bit, he'll get more milk from the breast. You might want to do a little bit of power pumping for a couple of days, and that might just kickstart your supply and increase the milk in your breast a bit more, so he gets more at the breast when he's feeding. Compressions will do the same. That would be a really good way of getting more milk into your breasts. And just make sure that he's doing what he should be doing. He's not necessarily going to be pooing every day because he's 9 weeks now. But you probably need to just check what he's doing on his growth chart. And look at the centiles to see if he's still going up and following the right line. And your health visitor will be able to tell you that when she sees it.
That's a good idea.
That helps.
All right, Samana, I hope that's all right.
Well done.
Yes, fantastic. Dory said thank you. Charlie has said thank you, much appreciated. Pippa has said, I'm starting to think my little one may have a lip tie. Who should I contact about this? We'll both go in unison, don't worry. Lip tie doesn't impact on feeding.
The more you do with a lip tie, the more scar you'll get, and the more you'll have more dental spacing afterwards. They tend to resolve themselves as they get a bit older. So when they get to about 11 or 12, they tend to resolve a little bit, and the teeth then form as normal. But we don't look at them at all.
No.
It's something you might have seen on forums that involve America, and they will cut pretty much anything that is cuttable. But in the UK, it's not something we discuss because just talking to dentists, they feel that it's too interfering, and it can make problems later if you cut them. If your baby absolutely can't feed at all, and it's there's lots and lots of issues going on, and you need to see somebody who knows what they're talking about with tongue tie and get a review. So how old did you say your baby was? Didn't say. Get a specialist to look at do an oral assessment if you're feeling really stressed by it. But I think that it's not something we look at as infant feeding midwives, and I'm trained to, and Alex is trained to assess tongue ties, and we see many tongue ties, and rarely do we see a lip tie. We see lip ties, but we never see it impacting breastfeeding. It's the way the tongue can function, and the way that the jaw can move, or the mouth can move to milk the breast from underneath, and the rest is stabilised. So it's not something that you should be concerning yourself too much about, unless you physically cannot feed your baby at all. And I'm hoping that you've seen somebody already if that's the case. Does that make sense?
So we wouldn't normally do anything about it. Virginia said, thank you so much for doing these videos. They are so helpful. I love the idea that nothing else is needed for for feeding. Just me and my baby, no mumbo jumbo. Absolutely, it's the most fantastic thing, because it's there, right temperature, right place, always available, and it can be described as your superpower because you make it when you're awake and asleep. So it's wonderful. It's
you watch your baby grow in front of your eyes.
I know, and you can just look at your baby and go, I grew this baby inside, and I've grown this baby, up to 6 months with no other food, and the pride you can feel in that is just truly wonderful. And knowing that you've given them this fantastic start in life.
Every drop of breast milk you give is a bonus.
Yeah.
Even if you're giving formula, you're giving breast milk as well. And remember that giving formula with breast milk will help to digest the formula, makes it easier on their tummy.
Yeah.
So, every drop you give is fantastic, and it's beneficial to you, and it's beneficial to your baby.
Right, we're at 40 minutes past, so we've still got messages coming, so we need to whack on through them. Thank you. So, Carolina's come back. Thanks for reassuring. He's dropped the middle feed over a week ago now, and we have a bit of a routine going. He's happy to take the bottle as well, so I'll pump a bit for comfort. I'm also pumping during the day anyway, as Daddy provides a feed once a day when I'm out or having a bath. Good thing to do. Looking forward to my haircut. Me too.
Me too. You won't recognise us in a few weeks.
Oh, I don't know. Well, mine's always tied up. You won't see mine's any different in
I'm
length.
going to have to tie mine up soon.
Might be slightly less grey. Naomi's will go really short. She wears hers really short. So.
I've had it done for months.
I know. Brandy has said, do pregnant mums have access to vaccines yet? If I'm to be down ill for a few days, I'd rather it be now instead of after she's born. And yes, I read research that the antibodies will pass from me to her in utero and later in the breast milk. I think it's very much a discussion to have with your midwives, and if you're under a consultant, the consultants. I think it's a case-by-case basis. Very much depends on your personal risk factors. So, our midwives who are working and are pregnant are being encouraged to have it. If you're not coming into contact with people who are aren't likely to potentially have COVID, then I think that maybe they're suggesting you don't. But it's very, very much case by case. So
the present advice I think is healthcare professionals and frontline workers that are pregnant at the moment, and they're not offering it outside of that unless there's comorbidity, so anyone's got any extra health problems. But as Alex said, it's just check on the RCOG website. That's the most up to date, probably the most informative website that you'll find about things like that.
I'm loving all the hearts and thumbs. Thank you very much. It's very reassuring. Charlotte said she's forgotten. She had her first COVID vaccine and is waiting for her second. Will Alicia have a COVID vaccine to protect her as well? And she said her first word, which was mama. Oh, there you go. That just proves you're a perfect mom. And it melted her heart. I don't know what they're talking about when it comes to young children at this moment in time. I mean, it's the fact that they're not even testing children in primary schools. They're only testing children.
11, isn't it?
Secondary school children are being tested for twice a week, but the primary school children aren't being tested. So I think they think the risk is very, very limited in primary school children. So I would anticipate that Alicia's not likely to have a vaccine for quite a while.
But look at the main vaccine websites, because we're not experts in that.
Yes, absolutely. Brandy has said lip tie versus a tongue tie, very different. Tongue tie question mark. So tongue ties, we would say definitely if you think you've got a tongue tie, get it checked out. I think that what we're saying is lip tie we wouldn't normally worry about. So if you think you've got a tongue tie and it's affecting feeding, get in touch.
It's not unusual if you've got a lip tie that your baby's tongue tied as well. So it might be that that's the issue, not the lip tie, and you can't see the tongue tie yourself because you're not quite sure what you're looking for. And that might be the issue.
And it might go hand in hand with a raised palate, which is another issue that can cause problems. So
and that doesn't go away when you have your tongue tie cut. So you have to work really hard. It's rarely a magic wand having a tongue tie snipped. It's hard work and a lot of support is needed, but it's rarely a magic wand. Some people see profound differences, but most people don't, and they have to work really hard over weeks and weeks to make things work. So I don't think it's a quick fix if you're thinking that it might be a problem, and good breastfeeding is good physio. And that's what you've got to get first to maximise tongue function and improve things. So make sure you get really good breastfeeding support first and get an assessment by somebody who knows about good breastfeeding and about tongue ties before you make a decision. It may not need cutting.
Yeah, exactly. Sam has come back to say thank you very much for the advice. He always has more than 1 or 2 big dirty nappies each day. Fantastic. I'll see if she can get him weighed. She can try and get him weighed. We'll contact the health visitor. Thanks again. So those poos sound really reassuring. That's absolutely brilliant. Venetia sent a lovely smiley face. Lauren has said, how often should a week-old be fed? Baby usually feeds every 2 to 3 hours, but last night he slept for 5 and I tried everything to wake him for a feed. Is that normal? He did cluster feed a lot before he fell asleep. Yeah, normal.
As long as he's reaching his milestones, as long as he's gaining weight, pooing and peeing, or we do the other way around, pooing and peeing and then gaining weight, then that's fine. But if he does 5 hours regularly, he's going to miss out on feed. So we say 8 to 12 in 24 hours.
Yeah, I was about to say, look what happens the rest of the day, because if he's doing a cluster feed section, which you've said he's done, a cluster feed and then a long sleep, then that's fine, because he'll get his 8 to 12 feeds in 24 hours. So we're looking for 8 to 12 feeds in the 24 hours. Oh, that's our bleep going off.
Take it off.
That'll be somebody saying, where are you?
I'm making it quiet.
So yeah, 8 to 12 feeds is what we were saying there then. Right, so we've got Natalie's our next question. We must be near. Natalie says her daughter is 8 weeks tomorrow and she sometimes sleeps up to between 5 and 8 hours at night. Should I express if she's asleep and doesn't wait for a feed? Most times she wakes around 4ish, but she's starting to sleep longer more often. Don't want my milk to decrease. The rule of thumb is to think about not going more than 6 hours between milk removals, whether that's a pump or a feed. Because it's thought that if you go more than 6 hours, your milk production will decrease. So thinking about not going more than 6 hours, so maybe pop an alarm on for 6 hours. And just make sure she's getting enough food the rest of the day. As we've just said, they need an amount of milk in a 24-hour period, and if they have big gaps, they're going to need lots of feeds at other times. So sometimes we meet mums and they'll say, my baby feeds all day, hardly seems to sleep, and then lo and behold, you find out the baby sleeps a long period at night. And it evens out and they carry on growing because they're all different.
Better that way around than all night and sleeps all day.
Which some babies do too.
Some do that. So that's the right way around.
So if you think, if you're thinking that might happen, you could always put a backup alarm for about 6 hours and then get up, and you could actually just give her a dream feed really rather than even pump. Just try and encourage her because babies will feed even if they're asleep. So,
how are we doing?
We've got a little bit more. Alicia, Charlotte's come back. Alicia keeps waving at the screen to say hi. Hello, Alicia. Lauren has said, thank you. He gained 10 grams on his birth weight on day 5, and that's good. He went up on his day 5 weight. That's brilliant. Lots of wet and dirty nappies. So thank you. Feel more reassured. Brilliant. Well, that's great. Oh, and that's our last one. No more.
Fantastic.
That's it. I think we've done everyone. And apologies if I've missed anyone. I always find scooting down here. I'm just looking up to make sure I haven't missed anyone. I'm hoping I've got you all. And yeah, I think we've got all the questions.
Lots of lovely questions today. Lots
yeah,
of watching.
loads. We've been on for an hour and 40
You can tell the weather's cold. It was too nice last week.
Yeah, last week it was quiet.
Everyone was out, freedom, jumping out in the sunshine.
So, well, all the best to all of you, and any of you that we've said to give us a shout, give us a call. If you get our answer phone, leave a message. We're working. We've got people working tomorrow and on Saturday, so you will get a call back. It may not be instant. And yeah, happy feeding. Yeah. All right then. Thank you very much for all your lovely questions.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye from us.
Brad just come and said thank you. Okay, brilliant. Bye bye, one and all.